After you just move a mountain, how do you act? How do you react? After you overcome some great obstacle in life, what do you tend to act like? Let's look at that here in a minute. Luke 17, verse 7, which of you, having a slave plowing or tending sheep, will say to him when he has come in from the field, come immediately and sit down to eat? But will he not say to him, prepare something for me to eat, and properly clothe yourself and serve me while I eat and drink, and afterward you may eat and drink? He does not thank the slave because he did the things which were commanded, does he? So you too, when you do all things which are commanded you, say, we are unworthy slaves, we have only done that which we ought to have done. Interesting parable. But let me ask you, after you've moved a mountain, what do you expect your boss to say to you? After you've done something that you think is tremendous at the workplace or at home, if we're talking about your dad or whatever, I don't know. But after you've done something you think is incredible, how do you expect people to act? Well, I mean, be real. You expect a pat on the back, attaboy. You expect praise. You expect certain treatment in response to this great thing you've overcome. Just look at any prize fighter when they win, especially when they win the championship. They go nuts, right? They're jumping all over the place or jumping on top of the cage in the UFC or something like that and raging out and everything. I mean, they're pumped. They're super excited because they overcame something that many people doubted they could even do. How are we to react when we overcome trials that other people struggle with? When we're victorious in areas that we didn't think we ourselves could be victorious in? How ought we react to that, and what ought we expect in response? In the previous few verses, Jesus just talked about being required to forgive your brother if they sin against you 7 times a day. And they come to you and they forgive. And they ask for repentance. They ask for forgiveness. Excuse me, I'm messing this all up. In verse 5, their response to Jesus telling them they have to do that is increase our faith. But what they're going to find is in future days, they will have to forgive these kind of things. They will accomplish this. And the tendency in those moments when you overcome is to move to pride. Look at what I've done. Look at all I've accomplished. Look at the things I've been able to do that others don't seem to be able to pull off. There's almost nothing more dangerous than spiritual pride. I don't know that there is anything more dangerous than that. When you start growing, you start excelling in some avenue of your life, it's amazing how judgmental and proud you can become. If you're a good evangelist, you have a tendency to look down on other people who are not good at that. You have a tendency to look and just say they're making excuses. It's quick, it's easy to be judgmental. If you're good at any given thing, if you spend a lot of time in prayer and somebody says they don't really pray much, it's very easy to be judgmental. We're very quick to look down on that and think that we are completing that task by the power of our own strength. Spiritual pride, deadly. Jesus wants them to know through this parable. He doesn't get into, there's a main point, a main theme in any parable. And you always get in trouble when you start looking at the subsidiary points. A lot of people have missed this parable and they have misunderstood it or just not thought about it because they don't like the portrayal of the master here, who seems to be pretty thankless. Now, but our current cultural understanding of slave and master relationship is not important right now. What important is, what is the expectation? That's the lesson Jesus is trying to teach. What is the expectation for the child of God in when they overcome trials? Should I be expecting a pat on the back every time I do that which is normal routine in the life of a believer? Jesus would view forgiving another brother like this and restoring them as, dude, that's just what we do. That's just part and parcel of who we are. That's nothing to expect a trophy for. That is just who we are as reborn, regenerated children of God. Incredible. This reminds me of Psalm 115, not unto us, but unto your name give glory. The praise doesn't rightly belong to me. I don't serve in the strength that I provide, because if it's in my strength, then the fruit of the Spirit isn't there. The fruit of the Spirit evidences love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control. Those things, those didn't come from me. That had its power source in the Spirit that enlivened me to do those things. So if I'm able to forgive someone, especially this kind of thing, that's just evidence of God working in me. That's nothing that I should be like, well, look what I can do. That's a completely wrong way to view all that. If you excel in some area, especially in service in the church, that's not some bragging point. That's not something to build yourself up about. That's something to be humbled by and to say, God's using me. God can also make a donkey speak if he needs to. He'll raise up children from the stones if he needs to. So, looking back at this, we find a servant who is not expecting to have a bravo every time he does something. But think about your own relationships in life. If you are a person who has people under your authority, if you're a dad and you have a son, every time he does one of those jobs you give him, you ask him to mow the grass. Every time he does a good job, you don't have to, have a parade about it. This doesn't mean that we're unwilling to say thank you. Also, Jesus, in the next few verses, gets into actually exactly that, the need for us to go and express thankfulness when things are done for us. So he gives us this story, and then he gives us a counterbalance in the next story. And that's very proverbial. The Proverbs, Solomon, or whichever author it is at the time, as you're reading through Proverbs, gives you a point that sometimes sounds too strong, and then in the next few verses, much of the time, he gives you a counterbalance to it. He helps you find what's really going on here. See, I shouldn't walk around expecting praise, but I should also be one who gives it very frequently. I should be eager to give that. I don't think every time I read my Bible, every time I spend some good time in prayer, I shouldn't expect something from God, because that's just what I ought to be doing. That's the expectation for a child of God, to want to be near God. It's not a parade-worthy event. Sometimes we're looking for the wrong thing from God. We're expecting way too much for things that he has given us the power to do, like forgive like this. We are looking for something he's not going to give. And if you have the wrong expectation for God, you can quickly become disillusioned with him. Jesus here helps us get a grasp on this. The Father is not indebted to us in any sense. He doesn't have to pour out praise on us. And actually we find in chapter 12 of Luke, we find that a servant will recline at the table, and Jesus will be the one to serve them. But that's in glory. Looking for the praise, looking for some kind of, I don't even know what it would be, a spiritual high every time you pray with somebody, every time you witness to somebody, every time you serve communion or something at church. To expect something from God is a wrong expectation. We serve because we love him. We serve because we just get the joy of being near him, and we get the opportunity to serve. What a joy it is to be able to be a part of someone else's life and help them find their way to Christ. Help them understand more of what it looks like to walk with him. What a privilege we have. What an honor it is for us to follow after Christ. Thank you for joining me.